Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Disruptive Innovation, Creating an Experience Economy. Think disruptive innovation, and there are a couple of things that come to mind: accessibility, simplicity, convenience, and of course, in the Indian context, affordability. But our panel today is going to expand that definition that I've just presented to you and explore how disruptive innovation can take India forward in creating an experience economy. Glad that you could all be here today. I'm going to throw a couple of phrases at each one of you, and this one is going round the table so nobody can dodge, but perhaps Mr. Charles is going to be the first volunteer. I say experience economy, I say disruptive innovation. Start with experience economy. What comes to your mind? Put that definition out here on the table.
Well, experience economy might be the next step after the service economy. If you think about the time of agriculture, the time of industrialization with products, the time of service, one could think that the experience economy is the next step. So it's a fusion of many things, but simply said, we could imagine that it's looking at creating things for the society, for people or business, not based on the expansion of what has been done before, but based on the fundamental thing you want to provide as a value to the society, to the individual, or to the business. So removing everything else and making it lean, simple, efficient, low cost, affordable, with all those great characteristics.
Okay, that's an understandable concept, but if I put that to you, that phrase, experience economy, what comes to mind, Dr. Shamantran?
Well, we say a fine dining experience doesn't stop with the food. Fine dining experience extends to the ambiance, the environment. We in the auto industry have always talked about the environment inside the vehicle to be as important as the technical function of the vehicle. We've seen people go to the extent of actually putting a scent bottle under the seat so that you can actually smell the Connolly leather, even if it doesn't have Connolly leather. So I think we are constantly trying to expand the quantum of immersion that we have in the five senses. And I think it's my belief, at least, that life is always experienced with the five senses, but sometimes perhaps narrowed down to a limited spectrum of one or two, and every time we try to expand that spectrum, we truly enjoy the broader experience.
Mr. Chenoy, here in India, we would argue that there is evidence of disruptive innovation constantly taking place. But what comes to mind of outstanding examples of disruptive innovation which are current here in India?
There are three or different types of disruptive innovations. Okay, it is not necessary that a company or an individual actually does a disruptive innovation. So if you're talking of company in healthcare, right, you're talking of low-cost X-ray machines, or you're talking of low-cost eye surgery, right? But you're talking of collective group of individuals, and this may actually sound strange, but missed call is innovation which has been done collectively by the people of India, which is taking advantage of a policy and another aspect. Okay? So it depends on whether we talk of a product, a process, or a different aspect. So in Indian context, it could be, how do you provide clean toilets on a pay-per-use basis to a large section of society who don't have it. So the innovation can come across a product, a service, individual, society, and a country.
And an approach.
Yeah.
Do you see, Mr. Charles, any contradiction in what we in academic terms consider the experience economy to be sort of high-end, cutting-edge technology, and what we're talking about, whether it's Mr. Chenoy's examples of what we consider disruptive innovation here in India, or we're just trying to make a distinction where there isn't any?
I think that the experience economy is about when you offer or sell something, do you grow the satisfaction of that person or that business using that service or that thing, if it's a product? Do you grow it and ask for less to provide that services? And I think this disruption on this world to really provide a new level of quality of life to the billion people, we'll have to rethink about what the first 2 billion did in a very, very profound way, and that's good news.
So, Mr. Pillai, you know, when you think about innovations in the delivery of electricity here in India, you know, what do you truly and honestly consider as innovative?
Last month we released a Smart Grid Vision and Roadmap for India, which talks about a 15-year transformation of the entire power system in the country, the way the telecom system has been transformed. This talks about several bold initiatives like demand response. It's one of the latest concepts. A demand response is a new concept where we reduce the load in the customer's premises, air conditioners or some of the machineries at the household or in the factories, but light and fan is kept open. Curtailing the loads which can be shifted, that can be shifted or curtailed during the peak hours. So demand response. So last year we allocated some 14 pilot projects in 14 states, smart grid pilot projects. So when these projects were announced to the world, everybody said that demand response is too new a concept in United States. Japan is still discussing. They have not started it. In Germany and France, they are going to do that.
But necessity has forced that or fast-tracked that here in India.
Our necessity is much higher. We want to do demand response to curtail the load of categories of consumers, those who have self-generation, so that available power on the grid can be given to millions more households.
Point taken.
Yeah.
Dr. Sumantran, I still cannot reconcile, and forgive me for being dense about this, but you know, when we talk about cutting-edge technology, and then we talk about basic provision of services, basic by the rest of the world standards, like electricity. You know, make that bridge clearer for me.
You know, in India, we've had this innovation, and I think celebrated by people like Professor Prahalad, the 3 rupee sachet of shampoo. Well, frankly, it turned the laws of economics upside down. We all had been taught to believe that economies of scale were critical, that you could not transport and deliver and distribute in such small lots to be economically viable. But somebody out there, through a combination of technology of sachet packing and through an economic model of how to make this work through retail delivery and the supply chain, made that system happen. So in a way, yes, you could look down your nose at it, but it is disruptive innovation. It was a result of a combination of technical and economic changes, and the net result is something that perhaps you and I would not fully appreciate, but something would be hugely appreciated by somebody who says, can you imagine somebody who's not had a real bath for 10 days and comes out of a wash with a shampoo? You know, what is the value of that experience?
Well, the fog has lifted. So thank you for that. Mr. Chenoy, can you see, you know, more bridges between the kind of high-end technology that we saw on display here today at this forum and the pressing problems that India faces in the education, healthcare, power, on any of those fronts? I mean, is there room to apply research-driven high-end technology to some of the pressing problems today?
Let me take the most complex, one of the more complex things in display today, which was the 3D imaging, right? Which you have the projection and the imaging. Now, this is to provide an experience of how a car would look like, how jewelry design would look like. That's the experiential part of it. How do you apply it to education? Okay? So one of the big challenges in India is, how do you ensure that assessments across different educational institutions or vocational training institutions are standardized? Is there a method to use the same technology to capture what is being done by examinees around the country, put it in 3D, develop an algorithm to ensure how to grade them and mark them, and do an online assessment that is available to everybody and to the recruiter to see? It will transform the way that you assess and train the output of a carpenter, the output of a plumber.
Interestingly put, but on an entirely different note, Alberto, you know, when you think of the kind of disruptive innovations that you have encountered in your professional life at Oerlikon Drive Systems, what's the one that makes it to the top of the list?
We have developed a hybrid. For example, we started with a wheel loader that uses a much smaller diesel engine that will save 25% of fuel, and then powers a supercapacitor that is basically a big battery. And then this supercapacitor powers 4 electric motors that power the machine. And then also the excavator thing is also managed by the electric motors. The result of that is going to be, hopefully we're building the thing now, hopefully it's going to be that we will be able to have this a better service, because this thing is going to be able to move each wheel at a time. So it will have better mobility.
Right.
It will waste less on tires, but it will save 25% of fuel. So the payback of this product will be 18 to 24 months, and for the rest of the life of this product, for 15 years, you're going to save money. So that is one of the examples of how, even in a legacy industry like ours, we can innovate and create some value.
How do you measure what consumers really want in an experience economy? How do you know as a business or as a company that, these are the indices that I should be tracking? How does it really work on the ground? I get the concept.
Well, I think if the product is successful, it most probably provide a good experience. Whether it's consumer goods or sophisticated products, at the end of the day, the consumer will make the decision. What is very interesting is to discover, when we continue to add things to something that exists, like what has happened to the automobile market, we've been adding so many things to such certain cars, it's far too much. And now we see on the market, even in developed countries, low-cost cars being very successful. I believe there is much more than this society, the world needs, in providing services and solutions which are more affordable for more people consuming less. So the frugality of this is really becoming a value. If we consume more than the service we provide, it's not okay in my mind, and it will not last.
Which is why I think it makes it so interesting that Mr. Chinoy picked that example of an application of your 3D, the 3D example that he picked, because it's got an application in a space that it's traditionally not been applied in, right, Mr. Chinoy?
There's a generational shift happening. And what we consider as high-end technology for us is actually base level technology. And let me give you an example. It might sound funny, but if I give you a photograph, how would you look at it? Right? You just look at it?
Yeah.
If you gave the same photograph to a kid, what would the kid do? The first thing you do is do this.
Yes, I agree.
Okay? Because his reality, he's looking at it differently. So what the greatest thing would be, and the successful companies would be those that who actually take current, so a top end of the line kind of technologies and develop simple things which even kids can understand. And that's what Apple did.
But then, that's why I was going to say, if you asked me for an example, I'd put up, the whole stable of goods from Apple as an example of, meeting the criteria of disruptive innovation and experience economy. But how much of that, Dr. Sumantran, really applies in, say, Indian automotive industry? That same concept, how much of it is being put into play in Indian automotive industry?
Every time that we are trying to anticipate what is an enriching experience for our target customers, then all of industry, all of commerce, all of economy is about trying to work towards this. And I think in our own way, we are also trying to work towards this. For instance, just as we have heard about smart grid, the future of mobility is smart mobility. Now, what is smart mobility? Smart mobility is being able to have a better choice of what you want to do to be mobile, to be able to have that mobility afforded to you conveniently, to be able to afford that mobility at low cost, to be able to afford that mobility with a low CO2 footprint. All of this is ultimately what's going to drive. And when you say, what is the final experience? One always likes to save money, one likes to travel in comfort, one likes to be having an easy conscience of not polluting the planet when one is traveling. So all of that contributes to the experience. So we have to work towards what we can do here.
Mr. Charles mentioned and underlined the need for a collaborative approach in innovation. And I can't think of an area that needs collaboration more than power. When it comes to delivering, viable solutions for electricity in India. What's your experience been on the collaboration front?
In the country, if you are asking particularly, the research and development and technology development been quite poor on the power sector. There is a need for improving that. The research by utilities, when the industries, academia, research, all this need to happen. That is one of the main reason why 2 years ago, Government of India constituted this India Smart Grid Forum with Mr. Sam Pitroda as the chairman, who is considered to be the father of India's telecom revolution. So bringing the knowledge from the academia, research and the industry to leverage for advising government to make appropriate policies and programs. Last year we launched a electric mobility mission. It's a national mission with a target of 6 million electric vehicles by 2020, 4 million two-wheelers, 2 million four-wheelers, a large fleet of electric vehicles plugged onto the electricity system. Anytime they can act as a storage and pump electricity back onto the grid when there is shortage of electricity in the grid. A virtual power plant of millions of vehicles connected to the grid. It's called the vehicle to grid technologies, which is maturing. The energy storage technologies, as I said, is maturing. So economies of scale we offer for many of those disruptive technologies which is being invented in other developed economies. This is a bigger market. So we need to collaborate with them.
When you said collaborative, did you mean collaborations with customers? Did you mean collaborations of sort of different verticals? What did you mean when you said collaboration? It was making the silos also just talk to each other, the traditional silos?
It's about all of it. It's about specialists working together when you have a complex problem to solve, but it might be about interacting with citizens or looking at the way the society works. I was thinking about the example of transportation to follow up on what was just said. I have been pushing my children to get their driving license. For me, the driving license was the passport for freedom. For them, they tell me, I don't need it. I said, but you need a car. I said, no, I don't need the car either. They are living in cities, and they say, we can share. And then the bike, I want to offer a bike. For me, a bike, when I was young, was a very significant milestone in my life. For them, they say, okay, we just take the bike nearby here, and we'll put it back, and we don't need to be having a garage for it. So the social aspect of sharing is not reserved to the internet world of sharing. It's happening in the entire life, and it's collapsing collection of expensive solutions from the past in very, very simple, great new experience. We can say a smartphone is expensive, but do you remember the time when you had a camera, you had a video recorder, you had a VCR at home? When you stack all the things, it would not stay on the table here, and now you'd get this little equipment and you do everything with it, including sending the picture everywhere you want on all of that. So I think it provides, it collapses many things that have been far too expensive to do in a new, cool way to connect. And so this social dimension, I believe, is going to be very critical going forward. If you look at governments today, I'm not talking about this country because I know it's working well, but in my country, it's a big mess. They don't know the effect of their decision, even in Europe. They have no clue when they make a decision about what will be the impact. They work with paper, Excel file. They don't know the effect of it. If we were running our business that way, we will have a big problem. So I think the possibility to show to people what can be done, what will it be when it's done, and verify things before you actually spend money and energy to do it is a cool experience. And last but not least, my grandchildren, I went to see my father with her, she's 4 years, and she asked my dad why he put a wire to stick the phone on the wall. Because it was the first time she has seen that. You know, the world, the other perspective is really changing, and the social dimension of everything is really going to create, for us, the need to create new type of experience, whether it's education, life, on really being together, on living together at a lower expense of the planet.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. A great big thank you to the panelists as well. Hope we've been able to take that concept, the idea, a little further in your heads. Disruptive innovation, creating an experience economy. Thank you very much.